Yeah.
Have you ever walked around wondering what it's like to be in someone else's shoes?
My God.
You know, it's funny that you ask because just the other day, I was walking around and I looked across the street and I thought, wow, I wonder what it would be like to be in that person's shoes.
What
And then
kind
I
of
thought to
shoes were they,
myself,
though?
Yeah, it happens to me all the
big
time.
shoes.
Big shoes?
Timberlands.
Like, Timberlands.
Yeah,
I
classic.
thought maybe like clown shoes. But
Clown
they were,
shoes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes clown shoes.
It
But
depends
then
on
I
the
wondered, would that person wonder what it's like to be
in your shoes? They look
in
like they
our
might
shoes.
hurt. They might hurt a little bit. That's a chunky heel.
I've had to get used to these shoes because I work in heels. It's like part of my job requirement as a host. So now I can wear heels for 8 hours straight, and it's something new that I can do.
And there's new skill. Isn't it a great skill? Absolutely. Do we want to do a quick thumbnail for YouTube?
Love it. Okay,
I'll probably choose different, by the way. Just
for what it is. Love it.
Hi everyone! This is the Podcast Club in our shoes, and today we have a new episode with Lauren Brickman.
Hi.
And I'm your host, Dasha.
I'm your host, Ella. Hello.
I'm their guest, Lauren.
Yes, and thank you so much for sticking with us, following us, commenting, liking, sharing, reposting. What else is possible?
All those good things.
All those good things.
Any button.
One more good thing that you could do is donate. We can find a link below. Every donation is very important to new artists, to any artist, to be honest. So we would appreciate any help, support. Even just sharing is huge plus. So thank you so much. And I think we ready to start.
Let's start chatting.
Okay.
So you're not our teacher.
No.
What do you do here at NIFA?
My name is Lauren Brickman, and I am the Associate Chair of Liberal Arts and Sciences for the BFA program on the New York campus.
That's a title.
It is a title. It is a title. But I am a full-time faculty member, so I do teach. I just haven't had the pleasure of teaching you all yet.
Yes.
But maybe as you get into your upper division electives. I do a lot. A lot of people at NIFA wear a lot of hats, so I'm also currently part of the academic advising team. I'm part of the DEI council. I'm working on strategic planning committees, so I do a lot of behind-the-scenes work. But I started off here as a part-time improv teacher.
Oh.
And somehow ended up in the academic side of things.
Okay, a lot of things I want to
Wild. I know. Go ahead. Shoot off.
Okay, improv. You
Yes.
started here from the improv.
Yes.
Okay, let me phrase it. You are an actor. First,
Yes.
you were starting here, as I'm understanding.
No, I was not an actor. I was not a student at New York Film Academy.
Yeah.
But I came to New York Film Academy because of relationships I had with faculty that were here at the time. A friend of mine from undergrad, Craig Fox, shout out to Craig Fox if he's watching, used to be an improv teacher here, needed to take some time off. I had been a house performer and director at Upright Citizens Brigade Theater here in New York, and I'd been teaching a lot of improv and coaching a lot of improv, and so he asked me to cover for him. And then his short time off turned into a longer time off, and the next thing I knew, I was just the improv teacher. Well, that came later. First, I was just, teaching that, and then I was part of the team that created the new media class that I think has taken on new names and stuff. So I was exclusively teaching and acting for film, and then as the BFA program was brought to New York, Josephine Wilson, who used to be the acting for film chair, looked at my CV and was like, oh, you have a lot of experience teaching public speaking and other courses. She was like, you should meet Mary Samuelson, the Dean of General Education. She was like, there might be more opportunities for you in that department. And then the joke was on Josephine because Mary stole me and made me full-time in her department. But yeah.
And lo and behold.
And here we are now.
Here we are.
Yeah.
But you were doing here improv teaching as well.
Yes, so I started off teaching improv first, actually, because I got hired to teach improv in the conservatory. But before day one of teaching, they had someone call out sick from the teens program. So my first day working here was actually for teens, teaching improv. Okay. And then I was doing improv 1 and 2 for conservatory, and then I just sort of kept teaching more and more.
Cool. I want to get into some specifics on improv maybe in a little bit, but how did you make the transition to associate? And what now does your day-to-day consist of, and do you enjoy it?
I love it. I love it because I think that life is really long and it's really hard, when you are 18, 19, 20, you know, no matter what age you are, when you start a college career, it's hard to anticipate like the curveballs life's gonna throw you. And I am so grateful for the liberal arts education that I had while I was studying acting, because it kept doors open for me that may not have been there otherwise. So I really love getting to create curriculum and teach curriculum that supports you all as artists, but also, you know, centers you first and foremost as human beings that are multifaceted and allows you to be curious. And so I think of something that was said to me when I was in undergrad, that like nobody likes working with a dumb actor, right?
You did that personally.
Right, like that was something that was said to me a lot in my early training days. And so even though I did a BFA in acting and an MFA in acting, I was always taking classes in like the honors college and keeping my toes in other pots just to keep my curiosity alive. And also like, you know, you want to be a really good script analyzer. So like learning about the classics and learning about all these things, it just like enriches you. So
100%.
I love it.
It's what's like almost re-inspiring myself as an actor in the first place. It's like who do I want to be? How have legacies been left? What inspires me? What do I want to talk about life? Because at the end of the day, as actors, as artists, we're discussing life matters.
Totally, right?
And we need to know about the life matters, talk about the life matters.
Yeah, I
love it.
Whether you're an actor, a screenwriter, a director, you know, we're all storytellers, and I think that the thing that we all need to have is curiosity, right? Like when we stop being curious is when we stop being good at what we're doing.
I have a great question.
Yeah.
Because of that. So, would you rather work with a team of unexperienced students who are extremely enthusiastic and creative, or with experienced professional students who lack passion and creativity?
Ooh, give me the passion and enthusiasm any day of the week, right? Yeah, I mean, look, there's gonna be pros and cons with any working situation, but I think, you know, enthusiasm goes a long way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I would choose probably the same thing,
Yeah,
because
Absolutely the same.
if you're enthusiastic and creative, you can learn so fast.
Yeah, I think, you know, enthusiasm doesn't get you all the way there, but I think like a willingness to play, a willingness to show up. I think people that are willing to listen, like those are the like things that I'm really attracted in, right? Like, are you willing to listen? Are you willing to observe? Are you willing to take notes and feedback and like really collaborate? So I guess to me, it doesn't really matter where you are in the experience. It's like, what kind of collaborator are you? How do you show up in the space?
And you can't really teach somebody to care.
You can't. You can coach people. I think you can help people sort of unpack why they might be apathetic. You can help, you know, there are tools that we can help cultivate in others, but you're right, like there's a difference, like there's internal and external motivation, and if you're only being motivated by the external, that's really hard.
Can I ask what do you mean by external?
So like some people get motivated, like I teach outside of NIFA, but I do teach a weekend class on Saturdays. I work with high school students who are taking a class for college credit through a really cool program called College Now, Future Ready. It's through the CUNY system. And a lot of my like 15, 16-year-old students who are taking their first like college level class, we talk a lot about the fact that like if you're here just because a parent told you to or a teacher told you to, it's gonna be really hard to find that, you know, motivation when you have every excuse not to do something. So we talk a lot about like figuring out how to show up to a space because you want to be there, right? Or like even if you don't know why you're there at first, like figuring out for yourself how to set goals and intentions, because you know there's a million and one reasons not to get something done on your to-do list. So yeah, so I think that you can like cultivate that, because it's not innate to all of us, and we don't all have the same access or privilege, right? There's this an amazing TED Talk by a woman named Brittany Packnett who talks about confidence and how some people have more permission to be confident than others. And I think the same is true when we talk about like enthusiasm and commitment and all of that. Like we have to be aware of the fact that there are certain systemic issues around privilege that may make it easier for some of us than others. So I do believe that everyone is capable, I don't know. No. That's my thought, you know?
Absolutely. I think I don't want to like say names or anything, but I think I've been experiencing this semester observing people who were not who were absolutely not engaged or committed or caring about what they were doing. And by the end of the semester, I think it shifted. I think I saw a change in those people, and it's very interesting because I thought that it would never happen because I think they were interested in this externally.
100% agree with that. And that's when I said earlier, like, you can't teach somebody to care. That internal place. Yeah. And if somebody, I think, has never been, like, allowed to explore because of those external things what they even care about in the first place.
Totally.
How are you supposed to know where you want to bring yourself, what spaces you want to bring yourself into? And it makes it then almost impossible to bring all of yourself to it.
Yeah.
In the first, before you've even started.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like there is something with the air because I'm sitting and I feel like I want to yawn so much. And I just want to point it out. I'm not bored or anything.
Give yourself that moment. Follow that impulse. See what's behind that yawn.
Literally 10 minutes passed. You can see how many times I almost yawned and I haven't. Well,
your body's probably going, I'm relaxed for the first time in several hours. So.
Absolutely.
Don't judge that feedback that your body's giving you. It's letting you know.
That's why I'm letting you know that it's internal.
The exhaustion in me sees and honors the exhaustion in you. It's okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I love it. I did some yoga for the first time today.
First time? That's exciting.
First time in a little bit. Okay. First time in a little bit.
I was like, that's a big deal.
Yoga!
First yoga
Love
practice.
yoga. Obsessed.
It's great.
And it's just, you just have to do it. Rico said to me once, a teacher here, he's been on before.
We have podcasts with him.
Go back and watch his episode.
He told me once there's a million things you can do in a day to support this instrument in the craft, and if you can just try to do like 5 of them, how wonderful that is. And I've been coming back to that, and breath, literally breath
is your
so simple
entire job. It's your entire job as an actor is to breathe. You just gotta learn how to breathe.
Okay, I want to get into improv questions.
Let's talk about it.
I've taken improv classes before. It's absolutely been a while. Yes, and rule number 1. But what are, I guess, some fundamental improv things? Everybody plays bus stop, sure, but what is behind the bus stop?
So, are you talking about are you looking for like the basic tenets of what makes improv? Okay. You're right. Like, agreement is like sort of probably the place that most people start from and what they know about improv because they've seen like it on TV, right? People saying yes. But I think what often gets forgotten is the and, right? It's not enough to just emphatically agree with someone, right? Because like imagine we were on a first date and ask me a question.
Where are you from?
Oklahoma.
That's Oklahoma?
Yeah.
What else is in Oklahoma?
Cowboy stuff.
And what do you like about cowboy stuff?
So much. I'm emphatically agreeing with you that we're talking about this thing, but I'm not adding anything, right?
Yeah.
So think about how infuriating it is when you're on a first date or you're hanging out with people and you're trying to get to know them and like everything about them is like, I'm in agreement with you. I'm holding space for you, like, right? And it's like, but they're not offering anything in addition to that, right?
Yes.
So it feels like everything's on your shoulder. So I think like one of the most important things for improv is to get comfortable listening to someone else's ideas and suggestions and supporting them, but then not being afraid to like build on top of it, right? Like it has to be
such a great, absolutely love it.
It really has to be collaborative. I think the other thing is like you have to do what's best for the scene. You have to do what's best for the show, for the team, and if that means you don't get the laugh, like you have to let your ego leave your ego outside because sometimes the thing that might get you the biggest laugh is not going to serve the scene in the best way. And so like in my UCB days, they used to call, there were some players they would call like glue players because they would like hold the team together and like they might not get the biggest laugh lines, but they're helping like build that base reality. They're showing up and supporting and like that kind of work is so important. So I think, letting go of your ego and really thinking about like, what do you have to offer and like, having that, learning to develop that just, like, it's hard, right? Because everyone's like, trust your gut, get out there, say something. Yes. And you also need the emotional intelligence to like have that moment of discretion where you go, am I actually going to clarify the scene and make it better? Or am I just going out to serve myself and how much stage time I need, right? So like learning, like playing to the top of your emotional intelligence and not just playing for laughs, I think is like really important.
I have 2 questions because
Yeah.
So about listening, and because you said, I feel like a lot of actors, because of ego, we want to come there and interrupt and say what we want to say, what we have, like say our ideas. And another question is about asking questions.
Yeah.
It's hard for me not to ask questions sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I want to know how to add, so I'm asking like my character.
So one of the things, so I think one of the things when we're first getting introduced to improv, you get it drilled into you not to ask questions because it's one of those things that can build really bad habits. If you get started off asking a lot of questions, then you're gonna like never be able to take the training wheels off the bike, right? Once you get more experience with improv, I think you can start to pepper in questions, but you have to, again, it's like, I love salt. I love salt. It's so tasty. Salt does not live in my body, right? But I can have it in moderation, right? I just can't go overboard with salt. And that's the same thing with questions. Like, there are very few things that it's like a hard no, you can't do that ever, right? Other than things that are like punching down. Like, you never want to make someone's identity the punchline. Like, you never want to like use hateful derogatory language. Like, there are some things that are just like no. But in terms of like questions and other things like that, those are best practices that are especially important when you're in like your level 1 class. But as you build that confidence and you start to understand, you shouldn't be afraid of questions. You should just be weary of them because they can be a slippery slope if you're not paying attention, if you're not actively listening, if you're not having that sort of awareness of the bigger picture of the scene and of the team. So I would say like use them, just be judicial with your use of them.
Sure. And well, I think about questions being a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Is it because some questions are just questions in order to move something along and to try to practice the and without actually adding to the source
It's the and, right? Because if I'm only asking you questions, I'm putting all the work back. Yeah, I'm not really helping you out. But if I'm using questions because I want to clarify something, right? Or because it makes sense for the reality of the situation. But it's like, the reason we don't want you using questions in the beginning of improv careers is because we want you to learn how to do the and.
The and.
Right? So, let's...
I've never, like, I don't think I'm capable of doing a good ending for an improv.
Everyone is capable of it. You just, the old expression is like, it takes 10,000 hours of doing something to master something. So it's like, you just are, you're still finding your sea legs, but everyone is capable of doing these things. It's just whether, it's a question of, do I want to make it a priority, right? Like, is it a skill that I want to develop, and can I push past the discomfort of being bad at something long enough to gain the confidence to do it well?
What are
what I would say.
Things? Sorry to interrupt. What are things from improv that you take into acting practices that aren't improv that like you kind of rely on?
I think, I've said this a couple of times. I think that a lot of what makes great improv just makes great scene work, right? Like, and I think whatever floats your boat, whether it's Meisner or Grotowski or improv, whatever style of
Adler,
whatever it is, right? Like, whatever speaks to you, great. But all of them are essentially asking actors to do the same thing, which is listen actively, respond truthfully in the moment based on the given circumstances, and to hold space for beings other than yourself, right? Like, I think it's about having that awareness of not just what you're doing in the scene, but how what you're doing fits into the bigger picture. And I think improv is a fun way to just learn communication skills, whether you're an actor or not. Like, I wish I could get every teacher that I work with to take improv class. I actually have taught improv for educators because I think that there's something for everyone to learn from doing improv. And I know a lot of my friends who teach at UCB, they've often done like corporate trainings and they've taught people in other fields, because the basic tenets of what makes great improv, and I should also clarify, what I'm talking about is like great long form improv. Short form is a little different. Long form meaning like scenes, like you're seeing like a story play out. Short form is more game based, which is great. Nobody come for me. Short form, I love you. But I'm talking about what makes really great long form improv. Yeah, I think the skills that you can learn from that can make you, I certainly think that I use my improv skills in my classroom every single day. Like I tell my students all the time, I'm like, I feel very similar when I get out of a class as I do when I get off stage. Because it requires that same level of listening and awareness and presence, right? If you are really committed, right?
Yeah. Now, a question, I think it's about misconception, because I assume that improv always has to be funny. It always about jokes, it always about
I 100% assume that too.
Yeah.
So I think improv can be used in a lot of different ways. So there's improv as a tool for discovery.
Yeah.
There's improv as a performing art, right? And so I think it can be utilized and examined and explored in so many different ways. And I wholeheartedly disagree. Like, improv does not always have to be comedic, right? And think about this. How many times have you been on a set and have had to improvise something,
absolutely,
or adapt to something, right? So like improv, but when we think of like, but most of us think of improv comedy because that's, you know, we think of Whose Line Is It Anyway? We think of Tina Fey and stuff like that. And improv comedy is amazing, but it's not the only improv, right? There's a lot of improv. Improv is a huge world.
And that's another pressure that I feel all the time going up doing improv, because I feel like everyone expects me to be funny.
Yeah.
And what if I want to come up with an interesting story but it's not funny? Then what if it's like,
But
I don't know.
I also think like putting pressure on yourself to be funny doesn't serve you in any situation.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's like if I'm doing a comedic improv show, there are certain things that I'm going to be probably like looking for in a different way, but I'm also not approaching it terribly different than other styles of performance, because I'm still, you know, I'm responding as whatever character I'm playing in whatever world that I'm in. So, but yeah, I think some of the most fun I've had doing improv has been some of the most dramatic acting I've ever done. And that was always sort of my like super skill when I was doing a lot of improv, was like, because I came from an acting background, like I had an old a team of mostly non-actors. It was a lot of writers who were trying to get into the comedy world. But I was fresh out of grad school, and one time I remember like just crying in the middle of a scene, and they were all so freaked out that I was crying, but their reactions were so genuine that the audience was laughing so hard. And we got off stage and they were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they were like,
I'm an actor.
And they're like, "That's magic," right? And the audience was eating it up, and it was like, I wasn't trying to be funny. I was just like responding truthfully to the scenario.
Yeah.
And they in turn were responding truthfully to my response, and the comedy came from that being kind of at odds. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100% that makes sense. I've said like 100%.
Comedy is just comedy is really just figuring out stakes, right? Like all acting is like, it's the stakes. What makes drama different from comedy is like appreciating the stakes. Like in a drama, if I get a paper cut, I'm moving on because like it's not a big deal, right? In a comedy, if I get a paper cut, I'm probably gonna sob about it because it is a big deal, right? Like it's like
it's vice versa. It's
a lot of playing the opposite. Yeah. But, you know.
Back to what you were saying about emotional intelligence and kind of teaching that skill. What are games that help people who maybe aren't actors or just doing improv to do improv?
Yeah, to practice like emotional intelligence. I think that, you know, really low stakes game that I think is great, and I was actually I'm working on a lesson plan to do with other acting teachers, because we're trying to figure out how to teach things that like we've been doing it for so long. How do we actually learn to do this thing, right? So we've been unpacking like foundational sort of games and skills and stuff. And one of the ones that I was preparing to bring in is this very silly, very dumb game called What Are You Doing? And you just go around in a circle, And the first person just starts doing an action. Like, if I were standing in a circle, Dasha asked me, I'm gonna start moving, and then just ask me what I'm doing.
What are you doing?
I'm getting my hair ready for prom. So my job is to say literally anything other than what I'm doing.
Okay.
And the person who asks immediately has to start doing the thing that I said, right?
Okay.
And then you do it for a few seconds until the next person asks you, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm putting Band-Aid on my cut.
So you start doing it, right? Now, here, you all tell me, what do you think? If that's going around a circle, how do you think that might be an entry point to starting to think about emotional intelligence?
No, I'm thinking. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is it allows me to not have like the pressure of coming up with a thing and doing the thing. So it's like there's something relaxing and like trusting about the other, whatever the other person says, I can just replicate.
I love this. It definitely is an ensemble builder in that it's, immediately making us work on right? I'm giving her something to do, so that's totally part of it. But think about this. If I were, what if I had said, I'm taking a big old dump, right? Could Dasha then pretend to be defecating? Yeah.
Yes.
But would you want to? No, right? Like,
Yeah.
most of us don't want to be endowed with, like...
Absolutely not.
Right?
Embarrassing.
Right? So it's a low-stakes thing to practice using that discretion of, like, how do I set up the person next to me for success but still have fun and be playful, right? So it's finding that balance between...
Love that.
Right? And so it's a good
Such a great
opportunity
exercise.
to, like, stop and start and talk about, like, did I set the person up next to me for success or not, right? And so... I love it as a teacher because it helps me sort of clock a group's energy, and I can pause and be like, ooh, right? Why were we doing that, right? Were we doing it to make ourselves laugh, or were we doing it to, like, help
And
our
that
partners
ties
up?
back into what you said
Right?
about, like, am I doing this for my own ego or to benefit the group?
By the way, even right now, I didn't even think that Ella would have to do what I just said.
Right, because you were thinking about you first, right? What am I
Exactly.
going to say, rather than what I'm going to say is going to impact the person next to
Oh
me, right?
my god.
So simple.
It's so simple.
So, and as a teacher, you're so right, like, the way to read a group. What are these
It's a fun way to sort of check in with each other, and I think that it's a great way to talk about, if people do endow someone with something horrible, that's where I'm the emotional lifeguard as the coach or as the teacher, and I pause and I say, whoa, 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 let's stop. I can name it so that you all don't have to police each other, right? As the coach, as the director, as the teacher, I can pause and say, hey, you just went blue, or you're reaching for low-hanging fruit, or whatever vocabulary you want to use to identify the fact that someone is not playing to the top of their emotional intelligence.
Okay, reaching blue.
So going blue in comedy means, like, you're using profanity or bathroom humor, like you're appealing to your most basic instincts and maybe being a little inappropriate. Low-hanging fruit is like easy, obvious jokes that, again, are not playing to the top of your intelligence. And there's a difference between playing between the top of your intelligence and the top of your emotional intelligence. Those are not always the same thing, right?
I think because I was growing up, I'm still growing up on a lot of...
I was gonna say, Dasha, it happened overnight. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm still growing up in a lot of improv shows. But they're from my country, they're Ukrainian. By the way, can I say something? Levin and Jippy, привіт вам. Короче, sorry. So, wait. I'm watching a lot of things, and I think my country and a lot of post-Soviet Union countries use a lot of bathroom humor.
And that's not exclusive. Like, there's a lot of bathroom humor here.
Just because I was not growing up like here with this kind of humor. And when I came here, I feel like a lot of films. I was growing up in American films as well, so a lot of films do have this kind of like, not dumb humor, but kind of dumb humor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
This kind of like something that easy to reach, easy to, I don't know.
Yeah.
Come up with, and I feel like I'm craving to have like intellectual humor, and like I feel the need to grow this skill, like to develop this skill in me to know how to joke, because especially in switching the language, it's so hard for it became such
Yeah.
a hard for me. You see, okay, such a hard thing for me to joke or just to even talk. So I want to learn how to be intellectual in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And,
Well, a couple. I feel like
thank you for listening.
There's so many things though that I want to respond to that you just said. A couple of things. First and foremost, I think like translating in your head is so frustrating. You know, I think a lot of non-native English speakers struggle with that. But when I teach improv, especially here at NIFA that has such a beautifully diverse population, I play a lot of games that don't rely on language, that rely instead on like body language and tone, because there's so much of how we understand the world. Like, language is important, don't get me wrong, but sometimes we forget how powerful the rest of our instrument is, right? Like, please nobody look this up because I'm paraphrasing this, but like a bajillion years ago, there was like this, I think it was UCLA or one of those big California schools, they did this big research project about human communication, and they found that according to this study, allegedly, 93% of human communication is not our language, but it's actually our tone and body language.
93?
That 7% of the meaning of a message is the language. That 93% of it comes from not what we say, but how we say it, right? So I would say take a lot of pressure off of yourself, especially when you're learning something new, and trust that you can be understood, you can make a point, even if you don't have the perfect words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You understood me right now,
100%.
just because I had like a very strong message.
When you know what you want, I think that we struggle to communicate when we haven't made a clear enough choice about what we want to communicate, right? So it's like, if you know what you want to say, trust that we'll figure it out if you are committing to it. But I think we get nervous or we second guess ourselves, and so that lack of commitment creates those misconceptions or miscommunication.
Yeah.
Because
right?
that comes through in the body language.
Yeah.
The uncomfortability doesn't have a way to
Totally.
express vocally.
Yeah.
Because we're going to make sure we don't sound stupid, but
Well, and I think one of the things is about improv, like one of the beautiful things is that if you are really building a team that's going to collaborate, like you have to just sort of like trust that even if they don't understand what you're saying, they're gonna help you turn it into something. It's not a solo sport, right? I think I wanna tell like every student that's like, I don't know what to say, I wanna tell them like, that's why you work it as a team, right? You're not improvising a one-woman show, right? That would be really hard.
That would be awesome, though.
But you have to trust, it would be so fun, but to learn how to get to that improvised one-woman show,
Absolutely.
you work as a team. And so like, trust that you have a scene partner right here, and that she has your best interest at heart because she wants the scene and the show to be as good as you want it to be. So like, she's going to be looking to figure out how to help you.
I love that.
You know?
I love that. And it's coming to back to that exercise. I think that we absolutely have to use it as a class.
Yeah.
Because my class is our team, is our great team.
Yeah.
We
And
love
I
our
think
team.
it's just a great thing. Thank you so much for
Yeah, and there's like a million and one variations of like that, but I think that one's a nice, like, simple one. But there's like there's so many different icebreakers or theater games that that can be like broken down into the simplest parts to like work on things like building trust and learning to play to the top of your emotional intelligence.
So improv.
Yeah.
Adore improv. Why? This just seems like it's a great thing to start early on. So as an LAS person, as someone who has taken into consideration the order of operations in which we're learning things, why is improv where it's at in this curriculum?
I wasn't part of the team that created the initial curriculum, so I can't speak to why it was placed where it was at the time. But I think it's a kind of beautiful space because I think it comes at a time when hopefully you all have a lot of tools in your toolbox to play with and wrestle around in. And so I think that there's an argument to be made about putting improv at beginning, middle, or end, right? You're gonna learn something from it no matter where it is, right? And so I could sit here and build you a case for why it should be where it is. I could build you a case for why it should be earlier. But I think like knowing that it's there in the curriculum where it's at, I would say just like trust that it's there so that you have more. Because you're bringing more to the class with you than you would have been in your first semester, right? In theory.
That makes sense.
So hopefully, your toolbox is heavier, so you've got more to pull from and rely on. And it would be cool to have like improv, intro to improv you know, advanced improv and then like whatever else, but you know, we can't give you everything in 8 semesters. So, but I would say like if you're loving improv, like improv is a great thing to keep playing with outside of when you get out of school. It's an easy way to keep your tools sharp by, you know, putting together an improv team, taking a class here or there. It's a great thing just to keep your mind active.
Cool.
What
else is is improv the main thing that you would teach as an actor or / like come back to? And that's just leading into my other question of what kind of brought you to acting in the first place? Where did you start with it? Where did you start? Yeah.
I have been acting for as long as I can remember, not professionally of course, but my parents remind me always that as a child I would knock on the doors of the neighbors and invite them to my shows that I would put on the driveway.
The same thing.
Yeah, right?
Of course, okay.
Some of us are just born this way.
That's where it started.
Myself and another little boy in the neighborhood would go to the library and check out scripts, and we had like we had a theater troupe in my mom's basement as a child. So I've been a theater major since I was in 8th grade, so I don't know where it started or why it started. It's just there.
Love it, same. It's just in my blood. I can't help it.
Yeah, I would say improv is an amazing tool. I love to teach it. It's so funny to me because I have not centered my work around improv in several years, but I love it. I think it's a great tool. I really respect it as an art form, and I love what you can learn from it. And I definitely think my experience as an improv performer, but I think it's interesting too. Like I took improv classes as a young aspiring actor in high school and stuff. I got really into it in my 20s post-graduate school because I was like, I don't know where I fit into this world anymore, and I needed a creative space. But even at UCB, at the height of my improv days, I was more of a sketch actor. I was never on a UCB like house team for improv. I was on a UCB sketch house team as a mod performer, which meant that it's kind of like we would do our own mini SNL every month is basically what Mod Night
Love
was.
that.
So I did a lot more of like that comedic performing, but I trained in the UCB style of improv. But yeah, and I draw on that a lot in whatever acting teaching or whatever, any teaching that I do. But if, my favorite stuff to teach is really like creative confidence and cultivating, like I love teaching psychology performance.
Creative confidence, you said?
Yeah, like cultivating creative confidence. Like I've done a lot of like solo show directing, and I've taught a lot of and y'all are taking psychology of performance, which is a class that I like redesigned for the New York campus, and all of those classes really center actors not only as performers but as creators, right? And so understanding that you as an actor are not just a vessel for memorizing and like regurgitating ideas, but that you have to show up, whether it's in an audition room or a read through or on set or making your own work, that you have to have the confidence to like make choices, right? And so I was just talking to my undergraduate mentor at dinner this weekend, and I call it cultivating creative confidence, and she calls it finding voice. And so we were kind of pontificating about what that looks like. But
how's that talking to your teacher as teacher, right?
It's actually very funny. I was watching your episode with Brennan, who I went to undergrad with, and he shouted out this professor when he was talking about the professor who told him that he had more emotional depth than Philip Seymour Hoffman. But I think Maggie was an incredible, I'll say her name, Maggie Lally, shout out. Maggie Lally was an amazing teacher and mentor, and I have known her since I was 18, and she has mentored me at like every stage of my career, and it's a beautiful, I think like the love and care she showed me as a student, as an artist, and now as a fellow educator is like, she really took my artistic journey seriously at a very young age, and she always had a deep respect for young artists, and so I love that, and I try to
awesome. Respect.
But I think I think that it's a beautiful thing to maintain a lifelong relationship, friendship with the artists who teach you how to be an artist, right?
I have a quick question. If you're I have a quick question about mentoring.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers, I hear a lot of stuff about, here's my mentor, they're my mentor and stuff like that. And question is, how do you found yours? And what is it, what is this concept about actually? And how to find or like...
I have a small piggyback before because like mentor, I like personally view people as mentors, but I hear people who are maybe more experienced than me be like, that's my mentor. And like it's a person who knows they're a mentor. How does that happen?
Yeah, well, I would say y'all are reading Letters to a Young Artist by Anna Deavere Smith right now, right?
Yep.
Shout out to anyone watching this who hasn't read it. Go read Anna Deavere Smith's Letters to a Young Artist. But part of the reason that I wanted that book to be required reading for psychology performance is because I think that while you're still in school, it's important to sort of recognize and identify that relationships don't all look the same, right? And so one person's definition of mentor may not be another person's definition of mentor. But I do think that, you know, one of the things that I always push my students to think about when we talk about this is like, what's the difference between a teacher and a mentor? So to you, what's the difference between a teacher and a mentor?
Mentors, it's more personal.
Yeah, I think, you know, in my actor brain, I think of it a little bit like the difference almost between like an agent and a manager. Right? So like a teacher has there's very clear boundaries, or there should be, with a teacher and a student, and the same with an agent and a client, right? They're going to provide you certain opportunities, they're going to, you know, but there's a limit to what they can give you, right? A mentor, much like a manager, they're going to be a bit more comprehensive, right? They're going to be able, like a manager, if they're really good at their job, they're going to take on fewer clients so they can give you more attention, right? Like an agent, and again, not every agent works the same way, just like not everyone's gonna have the same definition for mentor, but in my experience, over the years, having had different agents and managers, like, my managers will be much more available to me, right, in a more 360 kind of comprehensive way, and I think a mentor is a similar thing, where, like, you're not just taking their class, like the relationship might extend beyond the class ending, or it may be, like for me, when I think of Maggie Lally as a mentor, I took a class with her my first semester, there was a kinship there was like a like mind, I was really excited, and so even when I was no longer in her class, I like applied for a work study opportunity to work in her office, and then I was, she at the time was the president of the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, and I became her assistant, so I sort of learned under her in a different way, and, you know, she sort of guided me through my time as a student and helped me navigate waters outside of school, so we created a relationship that wasn't the traditional teacher-student relationship, because we were also working together professionally outside of school, and again, still maintaining boundaries and things like that, but there was just a different level of support there. But I think in order to have a true mentorship, you have to be cognizant of not just what you're getting from someone, but like what you're giving back. So like I think a true mentorship requires you as a mentee to be very respectful of a person's time and be able to show meaningful, authentic gratitude. Perhaps it's not as transactional, if that makes sense. Like I think a teacher-student relationship or an agent-client relationship can be very transactional. Not always, and I'm not saying.
I think I'm
not always friends.
Yeah, but I think there's like a level of non-romantic intimacy that gets formed in a mentorship that is, and I think it comes from people being of like minds, wanting to fuel that fire in one another. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know. That's my understanding.
Do I have to like ask somebody?
Yeah, exactly. Same question.
Do I have to be like, will you be, if I really enjoy how this person works with me, but how do I officiate
have to
it?
be
I guess?
officially.
Yeah, again, I think that's something that is going to be different for different people. I have never asked someone, like, will you mentor me? Like, the same way that I've asked someone if they'd go on a date with me.
Yeah.
But I do think that, in my experience, for me personally, it's always happened quite organically, but there's also been, like, an acknowledgement of it, right? Like, again, I think when I look back on it, like a deep sense of gratitude, of respecting that time is our most precious commodity, and so being thoughtful of how we use people's time, I think, can shape a mentorship. Like, if you're just constantly knocking on someone's door asking for something, that's hard to build a real mentorship with, right?
Okay.
But if you're showing up and you're like, I don't know quite how to, I'm trying to think how to say this, but it's like,
I have a great idea for
Yeah.
the movie. Can I quickly
course.
write it down because I think it's just genius.
but well, Dasha's writing that down, and I think I think it's not I think what makes it challenging is that it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, and I think you have to think about what feels comfortable and authentic to you as an artist and as a student, and recognize too, like, I guess maybe the thing is that you want to seek, like, consent, right? I think maybe
Yes,
that's what
like,
you're looking for, like.
That's exactly the thing. I
Yeah.
don't just want to like follow somebody around like a wasp.
Yeah.
So I want to have that acknowledgement of like,
Yeah.
this is mentor mentee.
Yeah, I recently talked to a friend who, she's a writer and creator out in LA, and she's had a lot of success in recent years, and she has a lot of young graduates that ask her for things. And I was talking to her, and I was like, hey, like, do you have any, like, what are some of the pet peeves that you have? Like, because she was talking about how she gets contacted a lot, and she was like, it does bug me often. She goes, I'm never annoyed that people are shooting their shot and ask me questions. She goes, but I am less likely to give of myself if I feel like they're being very vague, if they're being very general, if they're, if they don't seem to have a clarity of purpose in what they're asking for. If it's just sort of a general, like, help me, then she's like, I don't know where to start, right? But when people come to her and they're like, as a woman of color in the industry, I am curious about X, Y, and Z. Do you have the bandwidth to maybe like seeking that consent and having clarity of what you're hoping to perhaps gain, even if you're not. And it doesn't mean that a relationship can't evolve and can't change, but I think having an idea of what that initial why is, right? Like, why are you reaching out to this person? What is it about them specifically that you're hoping to learn from, and why, like, and sharing some of that. Like, I think sometimes people forget to be like, hey, I really like you because of X, Y, and Z, and I want to learn X, Y, and Z. Can I learn from you? Right? Like, I think.
So I will just come up with the presentation slides. I'm good at this. So.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a trap that I've gotten myself caught in, because sometimes I just am overwhelmed with like I need to get this in before I've even really sat down and taken a breath to realize the why.
Yeah.
The why.
The why. Like, why? Like, why do you want to
happening?
talk to them? Why do you want them to be your mentor? And then say, like, and I think sometimes you can buy yourself time by saying, hey, it was so lovely taking your class this semester. Can I reach out to you in the future to, follow up, right? Or, can I buy you a cup of coffee sometime and pick your brain about this specific thing, or whatever.
Cool.
Yeah.
Lauren, I will reach out to you. Can I reach out to you?
Yeah,
Can I be your,
But you better know why. No, I'm just kidding.
So Lauren, in the future, I've really enjoyed this time because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, but I also think, like, and I think, keep in mind, most of us I can't speak for everyone, but I think most of us are in this part of the industry because we have a curiosity and a love of humans, right? We are curious about them, whatever it is. And so remember that other artists, whatever stage or phase of their career in, like, they're storytellers too, with hopefully an insatiable curiosity about the world around them. And so meet your mentors where they are, right? Get curious with them. Like, we just had Kenneth Lonergan, the amazing playwright and screenwriter, Academy Award winner, and he came here because he just really loves storytelling, and he loves talking about storytelling with other storytellers, right? So most people, not everyone in this industry is going to be that generous with their time, but, like, most of them have that inner child that was just, like, drawn to this industry, and, like, we want to geek out about it and we want to talk about it. So, like, don't forget that too.
It's inspiring.
And if one person's an asshole, move on to the next one, right? Then they've just told you they're not your mentor to begin with, right? The worst thing you can do is hear the word no, and as artists, you got to get really comfortable being uncomfortable doing that. So
yeah. And it's great start. It's a great start to have no, actually, to learn accept no's at the beginning.
And then you just move on to look for the next yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Resilience.
I love it.
Will serve you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For coming
This
on
is
our
so
podcast.
fun.
This is so much fun.
I learned actually so much, Lauren. I really hope that
I
we will
hope
have
so.
your class so I can learn more. Yeah.
I absolutely. Literally, time flies, and we say this every time.
Every time.
Time flies. I feel like we just were about to get into meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
But I absolutely adore how you explain things. Thank you for coming
Thanks
on.
for having me, y'all.
Thank you.
Exercise, and
Yeah.
if we're gonna go in rotations, just
I love it. And thank you to the crew for all showing up. Very stylish
Absolutely.
today. One of the most stylish crews I've ever seen.
Aw.
The jacket game is on point. Just you all can't
Only
see
you guys
it,
could
but-
see.
Yeah, you should be here. By the way,
We always end with a clap.
Oh,
Yeah.
Together, a
Yeah.
consecutive
Here we go.
clap for everybody. Thank you.
and thank you. Links.
Yes.
Love you. 1, 2, 3. It was bad.
Yeah, one more, yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Cute.